I know we've all been sitting for a long time, so before I start, I'd like it if you would mind playing with me for 30 seconds. You know how you do a wave at an athletic event or something like that? Can we do a wave here just to get some energy in the room? Start here and go around. All right, around, round, round. Okay. All right, that was a good first go. So this time, I'd like you to do it again. And this time, when you stand up and it's your turn to go, do a movement with your hands you've never done before. So if the wave is this, just let your hands do its own unique wave, okay? Start again, your own creatively unique wave. Yeah, oh, nice. I wish you could have seen that, it became very interesting. So please give the person next to you a big hand for putting something new into the world. So thank you very much. About 3 years ago, I was interviewed by a radio station in the DC area. It was my first radio interview about bringing improvisational principles and practices into the federal government. And the interviewer said, improv in the government. Okay, Gonzalez resigned today. Go. like I was going to do an improv comedy riff. You know, like, so I was going to say, an attorney general walked into a bar, but that actually isn't what I do, and I don't know how to do it. And so I said something far less interesting, albeit improvised, but true, about, well, in a case like that, we would use the improvisational principles and practices to look at what the ramifications of that might be in a particular agency, or how are we going to navigate these situations, or for some creative problem solving or visioning. So today what I would like to do is introduce you to what I'm calling, oops, back up. Oh well, what I'm calling, thank you, the Improvidine, an improv-based paradigm. It's a paradigm informed by principles and practices of improv theater for the purpose of cultivating sustainable creativity. Because the practices and the games and the fun things we do can unleash creativity. Unleashing creativity in the system is easy, but how do you create environments where they're sustainable? And the current work environments we have are a product of the principles and the values we've been operating from. And so I just want to introduce you to a set of some different principles for you to consider, for you to add to your repertoire at your choice whenever you're ready. Why do we want to do this? Because we're ready to hatch. I believe that we're ready to hatch out of our silos. Everything now is blurring. We're ready to hatch, we're ready to break free, and we're ready to be born into the world, not just as thinkers, but as beers, as human beings. And one of the things about improv that's often overlooked, improv is often seen as a joke. You know, it's seen as the performance, like the guy on the radio, he probably thought of whose line is it anyway, and so that's where his mind goes. And so when you talk about bringing improvisation into organizations, immediately people freeze up, they're going to have to perform. They're like a deer in the headlights. And so we're talking about, these are actually new ways of being that we're introducing. The practices are simply ways of experiencing these principles. And so I personally believe that they're new ways of being that can create sustainable, generative work cultures. And I also think they go beyond work cultures. People use them in all kinds of conflict resolution. And I look also to the day where we use them more in the political arena. So let me give you a little context before I introduce you to these principles. I am in an improvisational theater performing group, and we perform full-length improvised plays. I got into improv because I was afraid of public speaking. I did not get into it because I like to perform. I stay in improv, not because I like to perform, but because I love the act of improvising. I love the act of co-discovering in the moment something unexpected that you couldn't possibly have imagined what that is. And so the way our group works is we have nothing planned in advance. No structure, no characters, no plot. We know nothing except for we get 2 locations from an audience. And so we might get something like, anyone? A doctor's office and a school. So that becomes the title of our play. We now bring you the doctor's office and the school. And then we run off stage, and then 2 or 3 people go on stage, we don't know who, We just trust that if you see 2 or 3 people, you stay back, and if no one else is, you go on, because you're always there to serve what's here. And so 2 or 3 people run on stage, and we go on, and we're in the complete unknown. We know we're either at a doctor's office or to school. We don't know which one. We don't know what our relationship is to each other, and that's going to emerge. And yet, in that moment, we have complete faith that we will be able to create a full-length, coherent, organized play from that. And I'll tell you why in a second. I'll just skip to that when the plays work, when it works, people cannot believe it's improvised. Afterwards, they're always going, that could not have been improvised. Some part of it had to be planned. I remember one time we had a mathematician come, and he literally was trying to chart out the places that we could have interjected some planning because it didn't fit in his paradigm. He couldn't imagine, how can this coherent, organized play that makes sense, it was a 90-minute play, how does that emerge? How does that self-organize into something coherent when there's no planning? And so I remember just so that he couldn't believe it. He really did not think that we were telling the truth. And I was so aware of how in his linear mindset, what we were doing didn't make sense. He was trying to look for the magic trick. He was trying to look for what was our trick, how were we playing a trick on the audience? But what he was missing was the real magic trick, and that is the naturally self-organizing coherence of creativity. All we did was use some principles to try to help harness that. But that already exists for all of us. Now, when the play doesn't work so well, what we hear is, great effort. You all, bless your heart. You were really working hard out there. Yeah, I was worried, but you pulled it through. So the efforting is what people remember, and how hard it looks, and how thankful they are they're not there. And we joke around saying, when it works, we actually don't get credit for it because people don't believe it was scripted, and when it doesn't work, we do get credit for it. All right, so let me go ahead and introduce you to the wizard behind the curtain. What makes a fully improvised play work? Because these are similar principles that you can then transfer into any organizational system. Okay, so these are 3 of the core principles. There's some other ones, but I thought I would boil it down to the 3 that I thought would be most relevant given the short time that we have. And they are yes and, make everyone else look good, serve the good of the whole. Yes and, anywhere in the world that you go and see improv, any form of improv, whether it's the short formats, the long formats, no matter where, people know yes and. Yes means you accept the reality that's given to you, the offer. Whatever someone throws out, it's a gift, and you accept it. And you treat it like a gift, but it's not just accepting it. It's not just agreement. It's not just consensus. So often in our organization systems, we go for consensus. We all need to agree, but it's the and. The and is what keeps it generative. The and is what keeps it co-creating. The and is what allows you to see people co-create in real time before your eyes. And so, if nothing else, I would say, remember the and. And so what happens is we so often, when someone throws out an idea on the table, we're very quick to tell them why it won't work. We have all these great ways why their idea won't work, or we might just agree. But in improv, the onus is also on you. You also have to be a very active contributor to the end. The next one is make everyone else look good. And in improv, the way you do that is everything is considered an offer in improv. And the way you do that is you accept their offer and you try to give them a really good offer back. You always are trying to give people offers back. Because, and think about how this translates into a work environment. If everyone in your work environment you knew they were there to make you look good, you don't have to work so hard and expend so much energy justifying why you should look good or why your idea is okay. One way to do this is through an improv tool they call Justify. And in improv, you'll notice someone will throw out an idea, no one might know why, and then everybody else will say to them, ask them, will join in to try to justify why that works. Why was that a great idea? So one technique you can use that's a good justifying to make your colleagues, co-creators, partners look good is just tell them why it was awesome. So when someone throws out an idea, don't ask them to explain it. Have 3 people say why that was an awesome idea. Here's what happens. Oftentimes in creativity, it's messy, just like in any new birth. The first idea out often might not be pretty and might be kind of discombobulated, and immediately everybody jumps on it. But as you engage the process and you keep going, then you begin to discover a much deeper coherence can emerge. And it's oftentimes in the justifying why an idea was good, whether you think it was or not. You're just playing the game of justifying. You actually get to the real juicy next level of evolved ideas. It's not usually the first ideas out, it's the next ones, and justifying is a great way to do that and make people look good. And then finally, serve the good of the whole. And that is thinking in terms of not just serving yourself, or sacrificing and just serving the organization, but serving self, others, and the whole. And we hear of people, profit, planet. In improv, it's people, profit, planet, purpose, passion, play, all of that together, serving the good of the whole. And what I believe is what happens is, in order to do that, you have to be present. And there is nothing like having to yes and someone that gets you present, because you can't wing it. If you haven't heard what they said, you cannot fake it. How often have we not been paying attention to what someone's saying? And then we'd say why it won't work. In yes and, you have to be present. You have to do these things. The nice thing is, in doing these other things, you actually become more present. So it's kind of a chicken and egg thing. It goes back and forth. Another thing that I discovered in doing improv is that a couple of years, I started doing improv in the late 90s, mid-90s. A couple of years later, I started looking at a little bit complex adaptive systems and the complexity sciences, and found that nature creates, improv is a complex adaptive system. It is in alignment with the way nature creates. You just think of everything in nature, you bring 2 things together, a third thing emerges that is greater than the sum of the parts. It works with the natural emergence process. It works in feedback loops. You're always generating after feedback loops. You have interdependent, interactive agents that are all contributing. Something unpredictable shows up. It's directly related to the way nature creates. And you can see, if you start looking, if we live in a yes and universe, you can find it anywhere. So you can go, a tree, the branch from a tree, the branch just yes anded the tree. Every time in your brain, when you think new thoughts and create new dendrites and new neural pathways, it just yes anded the brain. We are inherently designed to yes and. So, my invitation today is to put a little bit of yes and time into your day or into your work environment, whether it's a day a week or 15 minutes in a meeting, to start bringing these principles in. And here's how you do it. The first thing you do is you make it safe. Sometimes people will come and say, we tried to implement this, but it wasn't working. And then you come to find out that they had 2 people try to demonstrate something in front of the group. You want to make it safe and keep it where people are going to look good. You set it up so they'll look good. Set whatever you design, set it up so people will succeed. Let them know the principles. The principles will form the container to make it safe. Make the unknown your new BFF. If you embrace the unknown and it becomes a place of a fertile co-creative partner, then it becomes easier. So I'm going to leave you with an invitation for today. It's an offer. You don't have to receive it. You can yes and it if you'd like. But I'd like you to think right now of something you heard today, whether it was from someone on stage or whether it was from somebody that you talked to during the breaks. Think of some idea that you liked. And now think of a way to yes and it. And go up to that person and tell them how you've yes anded their idea. And if you can't think of how to yes and it, think of a way of justifying it. Why that was an awesome idea. And if you can't think of that, then add something completely new.